Power doesn't always come from struggle. It often comes from awareness. You have reached a point where what once felt hidden is now visible. The people who once intimidated you, the systems that felt untouchable, the social circles that seemed exclusive, they all run on predictable patterns. Their secrets were never mystical. They were routines dressed as rituals, confidence disguised as superiority. What they guarded was access to knowledge that was always within your reach, but your fear made it invisible. Now that fear is gone. You see how the powerful think, how manipulation works, how influence is built. You've crossed into understanding, and that's more dangerous than rebellion. The secrets they protected with blood are just truths you learned through experience, and now they can no longer keep you out. The first thing you realize is that there was never a gate. The world wants you to believe in walls, hierarchies, and limitations because that belief keeps you obedient. They tell you success is rare so that you stay grateful for mediocrity. They glamorize pressure so that you associate exhaustion with progress. It's a game of control, and you've finally stopped playing it. You've learned that access doesn't require permission. It requires perception. Once you see how the game is built, you stop trying to win it and start redesigning it. That's when the system fears you. Because you're no longer a player, you've become the observer. Psychology calls this cognitive liberation. The shift from believing you're powerless to realizing the cage was mental. The people you envied are not smarter, they're simply bolder in how they move. They talk with conviction, not certainty. They guess with confidence, and the world rewards them for the illusion. You used to hesitate, waiting for perfect timing, perfect clarity. But now you see that hesitation is how the world filters the obedient from the free. Once you start acting without needing approval, you unlock the same influence they've built their careers on. What they guard as privilege is just your self-trust waiting to surface. You will notice how fragile their dominance really is. Behind every display of superiority lies fear of exposure. The confident executive terrified of failure. The influencer addicted to validation. The friend who hides jealousy behind compliments. Once you see through that, you stop idolizing people and start understanding them. You realize no one is untouchable. They all bleed the same anxieties, crave the same control, mask the same insecurities. The world's so-called elite are not gods. They're humans with better disguises. And now that you've stripped away the illusion, you hold something more dangerous than their power. You hold clarity. They will sense this change in you. Your energy will unsettle them because they can't manipulate what they can't confuse. When you stop reacting emotionally, they lose control. When you speak calmly in the face of provocation, they panic. You'll see it in their micro-expressions, in their forced laughter, in their sudden defensiveness. You've become unpredictable, and unpredictability terrifies control freaks. They don't fear you because of what you say. They fear you because they can no longer calculate your response. That's when you realize why they guarded their secrets with such intensity. Control was their survival. Clarity is yours. The more you learn, the quieter you become. Power is never loud. It's deliberate. You stop oversharing. You stop explaining your plans to people who would rather critique than contribute. You stop warning others about who's fake or real because life teaches faster than words ever could. Silence becomes your armor. You start moving differently, reading intentions before actions, listening to tone more than content. You begin to see manipulation as transparent choreography. They still think you're playing the same game, but you're studying the rhythm. Every lie they tell becomes an insight. Every slight becomes data. That's how intelligence becomes power, through patience. You also learn that knowledge means nothing without composure. Many people know what you know, but they can't hold it. They react, they expose, they self-destruct because truth is heavy. Awareness without control turns to chaos. So you learn restraint. You don't reveal every card, even when you could win instantly. You let people underestimate you. You let them think they're ahead, because arrogance shortens their vision. The more they believe you're harmless, the easier it is to stay steps ahead. This isn't cruelty, it's strategy. You've learned to navigate power with grace. That's the kind of control that can't be taken. It has to be earned. In relationships, this awareness changes everything. You stop mistaking intensity for connection. You stop tolerating manipulation disguised as love. You stop explaining your boundaries to people who benefit from crossing them. Emotional clarity becomes your protection. You no longer chase validation. You radiate stability. That stability makes people trust you or fear you, sometimes both. And that's fine. You've learned that being misunderstood is part of being untouchable. The moment you stop needing others to interpret you correctly, you become free. They used to guard their social influence with tricks. Now you build genuine loyalty with truth. The world starts opening up when you move with this kind of quiet awareness. Opportunities flow differently. Conversations become strategic. You begin to attract people who move like you. Calm, intentional, self-aware. You stop competing with noise and start aligning with depth. You no longer crave what they have because you see what it costs them. Their secrets required masks. Yours required mastery. You're no longer hungry for access. You're building your own doors. And the irony is, when you stop trying to belong, the world starts inviting you in. That's the real power they never wanted you to find. Truth can be weaponized when placed in the wrong hands. Some people never lie outright. They slice the truth into fragments, rearrange it, and feed it to you in doses designed to control what you see. They know that full honesty is too revealing, too dangerous for their agenda, so they rely on precision deceit. They leave out context, twist tone, hide motive. You walk away thinking you know the story when in reality, you've been handed a script written to serve them. This is the art of half-truths. It feels cleaner than lying, yet it wounds deeper because it makes you doubt your own perception. A liar breaks trust once. A deceiver breaks your ability to trust at all. That's what makes them dangerous. They corrupt your compass while pretending to guide you north. They will call it honesty because technically, they never said anything false. That's the trick. They rely on the assumption that truth equals virtue, and they exploit it. The human mind is lazy with certainty. It clings to facts without context. They know this, so they build a version of truth that feels solid but hides poison underneath. When they tell their story, they sound convincing because every sentence is accurate in isolation. Yet the overall picture is false. They depend on your trust in logic, your tendency to take words at face value. You're not being fooled by lies. You're being blinded by fragments of truth, sharpened to mislead. Psychology defines this as omission bias, the tendency to treat sins of omission as less harmful than direct deceit. But the brain doesn't process omission consciously. When someone leaves out crucial information, your mind fills the blanks with assumptions. That's how deception takes root, not by invention, but by manipulation of interpretation. You assume they're honest because they didn't contradict themselves. You assume they're kind because they didn't curse you. You assume they're loyal because they never said otherwise. Yet every assumption becomes a thread they can pull. The deceiver doesn't need to create falsehoods. They simply guide your conclusions until you tie your own noose of belief. You'll meet these people everywhere. Managers who tell half of the plan to keep control. Friends who share selected truths to appear loyal. Partners who disclose only what benefits them. They're craftsmen. They study emotion, timing, tone. They understand that truth, when split and delivered strategically, can look like transparency while functioning as control. Their greatest skill lies in self-presentation. They appear trustworthy because they never break the surface of honesty. Yet beneath it, they build narratives that serve only them. The longer you believe them, the tighter their influence grows. And by the time you sense something off, you've already accepted too much of their framework to dismantle it easily. The tragedy of half-truths is that they make you question your instincts. When you confront them, they'll twist it back on you. They'll say, "I never lied." And they'll be right. That's what traps you. You can't prove deceit when the words are technically accurate. You start doubting your own perception. They make you feel paranoid for sensing what your logic can't prove. This is psychological warfare. Their goal isn't to convince you, it's to exhaust you. Once you start defending your intuition, you lose confidence in it. And when your intuition weakens, you become compliant. That's when manipulation turns into quiet domination. You must learn to read silence as carefully as you read speech. What they omit tells more than what they confess. If you feel unease, it's not paranoia, it's pattern recognition. Your mind registers absence before your logic can justify it. That's your shield. The deceiver counts on you dismissing that instinct. They hide behind half-truths because exposure requires full light, and half-truths live comfortably in shade. When you begin asking questions that corner them into completion, watch their discomfort grow. They'll deflect, minimize, or label you as difficult. That's the cost of seeing clearly. They don't fear accusation, they fear analysis. In your own growth, you must resist the temptation to use half-truths as armor. Many start pure and fall into this craft out of fear. They think filtering reality makes it safer, easier, more acceptable. But each time you trim truth to fit convenience, you lose a piece of integrity. Lies may destroy trust outwardly, but half-truths destroy identity inwardly. You become what you pretend to manage. Clarity requires courage, the courage to be misread temporarily instead of admired falsely. The moment you stop curating truth, you stop manipulating outcomes. That's how real strength forms, not in control, but in transparency that terrifies manipulators. When you encounter deceivers, understand that exposure is their punishment. You don't need revenge. You don't need to shout. Just let their contradictions surface. Half-truths collapse under full attention. The same fragments they used to control you will contradict each other when examined in sequence. Time is the greatest ally of truth because it makes consistency impossible for the deceitful. Eventually, they trip over their own precision. Every craftsman of destruction meets the flaw in their own design. You only need to stay patient long enough to let it unfold. The world has always been run by half-truths. Media headlines, corporate promises, relationships built on partial honesty. But your defense is perspective. You see the pattern now. You understand that truth requires the full picture, not just convenient frames. You don't seek transparency from others, you embody it yourself. Because once you live from truth, deception becomes easy to spot. You no longer react, you observe. You no longer argue, you recognize. The craftsmen lose power over those who refuse to be painted blind. Awareness makes you immune. Some people deceive through charm, others through sorrow. The world has taught them that manipulation wears many masks, and the easiest one to hide behind is emotion. Half of the people lie with their lips, but the other half weaponize their tears. The first group sells illusions with words, the second buys sympathy with pain. Both chase control, one through persuasion, the other through pity. You must learn to see the difference between genuine emotion and calculated fragility. The ones who cry too often for attention know exactly what they're doing. They make vulnerability a stage performance. They make guilt your leash. They aren't seeking understanding, they're seeking leverage. They cry, and the room bends to accommodate them. Their tears are not water, they're strategy. The problem is that most people were trained to comfort instead of confront. You were taught that tears mean truth, that emotion equals honesty. But emotion can be the most effective disguise for deceit. A person who lies with tears creates confusion because they trigger your empathy before your logic. You start reasoning from compassion instead of clarity. They know this, and that's what makes them powerful. They create a moral trap. If you doubt their sadness, you look cruel. If you believe it, you become their puppet. That's why emotional manipulation is more dangerous than verbal deceit. Words can be analyzed, but tears bypass reason. They blur the lines between sincerity and control until you start apologizing for what they did. Psychology explains this as emotional contagion. The human brain mirrors the emotion it sees. When someone cries, your nervous system responds as if the pain were your own. The manipulator counts on that reflex. They study timing. They wait until confrontation feels too heavy. Then they break into visible despair. You pause, you soften, you surrender. They win. That's how they maintain dominance without appearing dominant. They act weak to remain powerful. It's not always conscious. It's learned behavior from years of avoiding accountability through pity. To them, emotion is a shield that protects from consequence. To you, it feels like guilt disguised as compassion. You'll see this pattern in relationships most clearly. The one who causes the harm becomes the one who cries the loudest when caught. They'll turn every confrontation into a sob story. Their pain suddenly becomes the focus, not your truth. They say they didn't mean it, that they're misunderstood, that they're broken inside. And you, with your empathy, fall into the trap again. You comfort them for the pain they caused. That's the genius of emotional liars. They make you nurture the hand that wounded you. They never apologize because tears already bought their forgiveness. They're not sorry for the act. They're sorry for the exposure. The other half, the ones who lie with their lips, are easier to spot. Their deceit is intellectual. They play with logic, twist language, hide meaning behind tone. They want admiration, not pity. Their lies aim to elevate them above you. But the tearful deceiver aims to keep you beneath them, bound by sympathy. That's why their manipulation lasts longer. People forgive emotion faster than betrayal, and they know it. Their sadness becomes armor, and every time you question it, they sharpen it further. Eventually, they no longer need to fake the tears. They believe their own story. The victim act becomes identity, and their manipulation becomes a way of survival. You must learn to separate emotion from truth. Pain doesn't always equal innocence, and sorrow doesn't always mean sincerity. Some of the cruelest people cry the hardest when caught. They have mastered the art of convincing others that their suffering absolves them of responsibility. When they cry, it's not a breakdown, it's a transaction. They are buying time, sympathy, forgiveness. And every time you fall for it, you teach them that deception works. Their tears become currency. But once you stop paying attention, once you stop buying the performance, their power evaporates. They need an audience for their act, and silence is what ends the show. When you stop reacting to their tears, they'll accuse you of being heartless. That's the final card of emotional manipulators. They'll call your boundaries cruelty because your resistance exposes their tactics. But you must hold firm. You're not cruel for refusing to be controlled through empathy. You're wise for recognizing that not all pain is pure. Some pain is manufactured, recycled, dramatized. People who lie through tears believe that intensity equals credibility. They confuse drama with depth, performance with healing. You, however, have learned that quiet honesty requires no performance at all. Truth stands on its own. It doesn't beg to be believed. Pay attention to consistency, not emotion. The person who cries and still repeats the same behavior is not hurt. They're rehearsed. Real remorse changes action. Fake remorse repeats scenes. You'll know the difference when you stop listening to tone and start watching patterns. The emotional liar relies on your short memory and long compassion. But once you track behavior instead of words, the illusion collapses. You'll see that their sadness always comes when accountability arrives, never before. They're not crying because they care. They're crying because they're caught. And catching them in that pattern is how you reclaim your control. You must also beware of becoming what you despise. Pain can tempt you to use the same tactics, to control through emotion instead of truth. But manipulation always backfires. It offers short-term relief and long-term emptiness. Power built on deception is fragile. You've watched others fall from it, and you've felt how it poisons the air around them. Your growth lies in mastering emotion, not weaponizing it. Control is not silence. It's sincerity without distortion. When your words and feelings align, you become immune to those who perform emotion for power. Your authenticity becomes their mirror, and they can't stand reflection. Some people breathe manipulation the way others breathe air. They don't wake up thinking about deceit. It's already woven into how they exist. Their entire sense of identity depends on control. Without it, they crumble. They've spent years mastering the art of spinning invisible wheels, adjusting tone, rearranging facts, and twisting perception until the truth bends into whatever suits them. You can feel their presence before they speak. It's in how they observe, calculate, and mirror. They study your rhythm, find your weakness, and turn empathy into a tool. To them, manipulation is not cruelty, it's survival. They don't see it as wrong because it's the only language they know. Take away their control, and they become lost, exposed, almost frightened. They can't live without the illusion of pulling strings. They exist in every environment. The office coworker who fabricates alliances, the friend who thrives on guilt, the lover who confuses affection with dominance. These people function only when they're spinning wheels, always turning narratives that keep them in the center. They don't seek peace, they seek motion. Stillness feels like death to them because silence reveals their emptiness. The manipulation isn't random, it's rhythm. It's how they maintain balance in a life built on insecurity. You might think you can reason with them, show them sincerity, appeal to logic, but sincerity terrifies them. Honesty exposes their dependency on distortion. They can only function when reality is fluid. so they keep stirring the water until everyone else drowns, trying to make sense of the reflection. Psychology explains this as a control addiction. People like this are wired to equate manipulation with safety. Somewhere along the way, they learned that influence equals worth. Maybe it started with fear of being powerless, ignored, forgotten. But what began as survival became identity. Now, every interaction is a game of positioning. They measure people the way predators measure distance. To them, relationships are not about connection, they're about leverage. Every favor they do carries a hidden invoice. Every compliment hides a request. They don't give. They invest, expecting emotional returns with interest. It's not affection they crave, it's control. Take that away, and they have no idea who they are. You'll notice how chaotic they become when their manipulation stops working. Their energy shifts from charm to aggression, from kindness to guilt-tripping. They'll twist between roles. The victim, the savior, the misunderstood genius, anything that restores their grip. The more cornered they feel, the faster those wheels spin. And that's where most people get trapped, trying to calm them, fix them, or win their approval. You can't win with someone who treats emotion like currency. Every apology you give, every reassurance you offer feeds their machine. The only real power you have is silence. Refuse to play, and their wheels collapse under their own weight. That's when you see who they really are, hollow without control. In relationships, manipulators create constant movement, because movement means confusion, and confusion means dependence. They will love you, but only as long as you revolve around their orbit. When you stop chasing, they'll accuse you of changing. When you demand clarity, they'll claim you're cold. They thrive in emotional fog because it keeps you guessing. That guessing keeps you engaged. Every push and pull, every sudden apology, every unexpected charm offensive. It's all part of their ecosystem. They can't function in peace because peace exposes their chaos. They don't need a storm to survive. They are the storm. And storms can never stand still. The dangerous part is how believable they are. They perform empathy flawlessly because they've studied it. They mimic remorse when needed, vulnerability when useful, affection when strategic. They don't just lie. They create atmospheres. Being around them feels intoxicating at first, like warmth mixed with intensity. But that's how you know you're in their web. Everything feels too charged, too fast, too persuasive. They study reactions like scientists. Every word you give them becomes data, every emotion a lever. You start questioning your reality while they rewrite it. And when you finally see the pattern, they'll make you doubt that too. That's how manipulation works. It makes you question what's real until you cling to the very person twisting it. When you finally break free from someone like that, it feels like withdrawal. You miss the chaos because it once felt like connection. That's the cruel genius of manipulators. They train your nervous system to crave instability. You become addicted to fixing what they keep breaking. It's not love that binds you, it's the illusion of importance. They made you feel needed by creating problems only they could solve. But once you step back and see the cycle, the addiction breaks. You realize their power was borrowed. It existed only as long as you believed the act. That's when you reclaim your peace, not through revenge, but through clarity. Manipulators don't know peace because peace requires honesty, and honesty exposes emptiness. They can't look inward without losing their illusion of control, so they keep turning outward, spinning narratives, recruiting allies, inventing enemies. They need conflict because it distracts from reflection. You'll notice they never sit still, never admit fault, never apologize without shifting blame. That's how fragile they are. Their entire existence depends on movement, because stillness forces them to face the truth they've buried, the truth that they have no self without manipulation. Their control isn't power, it's panic disguised as dominance. Your strength lies in observation, not confrontation. The more you watch, the faster you see patterns. They think they're subtle, but manipulation always repeats itself. It just changes costume. Once you recognize the rhythm, you can predict their next move. And when you can predict, you can't be controlled. You don't need to expose them publicly. Exposure is inevitable. Their need for control eventually reveals itself. The same wheels they spin to dominate others become the very gears that break them. They trap themselves in their own design because they don't know how to stop.